Hey guys, it is time for my October wrap up. I'm a little late doing this. It is almost the end of November. I thought I'd already done it, but I didn't. So we're going to do it. I have a nice selection of books to talk about. These are all the physical books that I own that I've read. Plus, I've got some that I just read on audio. And let's be real, most of those I probably listened to the audio of. In October, I listened to 19 books. So stick around to see what books I read and what I thought of them. Hey y'all, it's Jen, and welcome back to my channel, Ifers Inklings. Yes, I do sound like I have been chain smoking 5 packets of cigarettes a day for the last 30 years, and I'm sorry. I gotta get videos recorded though, and this voice situation does not seem to be letting up. So we're gonna get through this, and hopefully it won't be too bad. I have 19 books to talk about today. I'm probably gonna do this quickly because, let's be real here, my throat hurts. And I sound awful. So let's dive into these books and talk about the 19 books I read in October. So I started off October with City of Bones by Victoria Schwab. This is the first book in her middle grade paranormal fantasy series. It takes place in the catacombs of Paris for the most part, other Paris locations, but mostly in the catacombs. And it follows a ghost hunter, really, and a ghost, and the trouble they get into. So in this book and in this series, Cassidy she has a near-death experience which allows her to see and interact with ghosts or spirits and kind of cross into the veil between the two worlds. And as I said earlier, this one takes place in Paris. Now, I gave this book 5 stars. It's Victoria Schwab. I love her. And this one did not disappoint. The next book is The Zombie Chasers by, I don't know, something Clover. I'll put it down here. I listened to this on audio from Scribd, and I gave it 3 stars. I listened to it for a specific prompt on one of the multiple readathons I participated in October, and it was just okay. It was a middle grade zombie book, and I found it to be very political and it had a very heavy agenda. It was, for most middle graders, they probably would overlook the political / agenda aspect of this book because it's zombies and it has some grossness in it, and it's a zombie book. But that's all I'm going to say about it. I talked significantly about this in my vlog for the first week of October, so check that out if you want a little bit more details on that book. Next, I listened to the audio version of The Romance Reader's Guide to Life by Sharon Pywell. I also used Scribd for this, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, and it wasn't what I expected. This is told in 2 different perspectives, at least 2 perspectives. It was 2 sisters. One sister is kind of the wild child and lives life to the fullest, including with life with men, and she gets into a troubled relationship marriage, and the other sister catches a lot of flack because she is the sister she's the book smart sister. She's the one who is always real cautious and would rather spend her days home with a book instead of out running the streets. So I really enjoyed this book. It isn't what I thought it would be, but I don't know how to explain this book. Again, I really enjoyed it. I was really surprised by what it turned out to be versus what I thought it was going to be. And there is a book inside of a book in this because it's the romance reader, so there is a romance book that's kind of included in this. It's not the full book, but it's kind of snippets of the story. The next book is Dark Breaks the Dawn by Sarah B. Larson. I don't remember much about this book. I enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars, but it's your typical YA fantasy that has a love interest in it, forbidden love interest. Um, will I continue on with the other duology? Maybe. I really enjoy Sarah B. Larson's books. She writes one of my favorite series, but this one was just kind of forgettable, and I don't. It is what it is. The next one I listened to was The Children's Blizzard by David Laskins. This is a nonfiction book about the blizzard of 1888, and it's called The Children's Blizzard because the majority of the people that were killed during this blizzard were children, school children, that went to school that day, and then the blizzard hit unexpectedly, and they couldn't make it home, and they were killed, died in the blizzard from conditions. Um, I gave this 4 stars, and the reason I gave it 4 stars instead of 5 is because the beginning of it starts out with a lot of family story history that I think could have done without or didn't need to be as long. You do end up following those families once they are in the Midwest, and when this blizzard hits, you see the outcome of it. But quite honestly, I couldn't tell you whose families were related to who and how they all connected by the end of the story. This was a tragic story of this blizzard, and it shows how weather is so unpredictable, and it shows how far we have come today with the National Weather Service and our ability to see patterns and predict weather. If you're looking for a good nonfiction book, I do highly recommend it. The next book I listened to was Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. This is the second book in the City of Ghosts series. It's middle grade. It follows Cassidy, blah, blah, blah. This one takes place in Edinburgh, I believe. I think. It was good. I really enjoyed it, and I gave it 5 stars. The next book I listened to was The Beautiful by Renee Audier. I checked that one out from my library, and I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. This follows a group of young women in the early histories. I want to say early 1800s. I could be wrong about that, but it is when the settlements of the French settlements in New Orleans were just kind of getting started. It's very much a French settlement, New Orleans setting. I really enjoyed it. It does involve vampires. We don't get a lot of vampires as far as full-fledged vampires. There's other paranormal creatures in it as well. But you can tell that there's at least some kind of vampires in it through the whole story, even if it's not explicitly told. There is a little bit of a murder mystery thing going on. A couple of murders happen, and we figure out who's doing that by the end of this. And like I said, it's a series. Really gorgeous writing. I really loved it. It is kind of a historical fiction, paranormal romance type thing. Yeah. But I really, like I said, I really enjoyed it. I can't wait till the next one comes out. So if you enjoy Renee Audier's writing, you are going to enjoy this book as well. The next book that I read is a graphic novel. It is The Lumberjanes Volume 4, Out of Time, and gave it 5 stars. I loved it. These are all kind of campy stories. There are tons of them, and I have loved all of them. I love the artwork in it. I love the camping, the girls' campiness experience. I just love all of it. It reminds me a lot of Girl Scouts, and Girl Scouts is very near and dear to my heart, so I loved it. The next book is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. I gave this 5 stars. I really loved it. It is heartbreaking and tragic, and there's a little bit of hope in it as well. I loved it. I do especially recommend that once you read the story, that you also read the author's the afterword and the acknowledgments, because it gives you a little bit more history. And if there's an author's note, I would read it too. Yes, about the author and the author's note. All of those, I think, gives a little bit more insight to the story and how this came about. This is historical fiction. The majority of the story is true, so I don't think it's considered a biography, but I think it's historical fiction. But it is 90% of the events of this book are true and accurate, and if not all of them. So it is. The more and more stories that come out about Auschwitz and the different stories and people we meet along the way, it's just such a fascinating time and a reminder of how awful that we can be. But these stories also show resilience and hope and just that sheer will to survive. And that's what this is. There's also a character in here that I want to research a little bit more. We are introduced to a person that gets put into the Auschwitz, and he was a U.S. citizen. So I'm curious to see how accurate that is and what that story is. I would love to learn about the story of the U.S. citizen that was in Auschwitz. So if anybody's out there writing a book, let me know if you know a book that involves that. So the next book that I actually listened to this one on audio also. I think I borrowed it from my library. I do own the physical copy, but I have loaned it out to a friend right now. And that is The President is Missing by James Patterson and Bill Clinton. I gave it 4 stars, and I do think that part of the reason I didn't enjoy it as much, the reason it wasn't a 5 stars, because I did listen to the audiobook. This is an audiobook that I would not recommend listening to. Pick the book up, read it. And I say that because there is one character's point of view that you get in this series that has, she listens to classical music, and that classical music is played in the audio version of it, and it overpowers the voice, the speaking voice. You can't understand the words because of the music that is also playing. So I did not enjoy that. I don't enjoy political themed books in general. And this was very much a political themed book. It's The President is Missing. There was a heavy political narrative in it, but I do think that the story flowed well. It was interesting. I enjoyed the insight into kind of the workings of the Oval Office and the White House and the presidential stuff that it talks about. I will say that I did not hear any of Bill Clinton's voice in this. And by that, I mean, it didn't sound like Bill Clinton had any part of writing this book. It sounded like a James Patterson book. But the Clinton aspect of this book was just because of the insights into the presidency that is in the book. So I think I probably would have enjoyed it a little more if I heard a little bit more of what I would consider Clinton's voice in it. I'm not a huge James Patterson fan. I do enjoy some of his stuff, but not a lot of it. So yeah, but I did give it 4 stars, so it wasn't bad. It was interesting, kept my attention for the most part. I did not enjoy like the first third of the book. It was kind of dull and slow, and then it picked up, as most kind of mystery thrillers do. The next book I read was Sleepy Hollow. I actually ended up listening to this. I borrowed it from my library, I think. This is a real short story. This is a collection of short stories. I only listened to the Sleepy Hollow portion, and I have not read the other ones. So it's like Rip Van Winkle, The Spectre, Bridegroom, Old Christmas, Pride of the Village. Yeah, there's several in here, but I listened to and read Sleepy Hollow. I gave it 4 stars. It was a nice, spooky, Halloween-y type book. So I think we all know The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The next book I listened to was Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I gave this 3 stars. I did not enjoy it that much. It was just okay. It was very mediocre. I, to be honest, there was a lot of it that I actually hated. And if you want more of my thoughts on this, it is in the week, probably the week 3 vlog. The one, I read this for Spookathon. So find the Spookathon vlog for that, and I go into this one a lot and why I did not like it and the parts that I didn't enjoy. I hated the last half of the book, which is why it gave me 3 stars. The first half was good. The writing is fine. It's the twist of it that I did, and one of the entire characters that I did not enjoy at all. Pissed me off to no end. The next book I listened to was An Unkindness of Ghosts by River Solomon. I gave this 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. As much as you can enjoy a book about the subject matter this is. It is a hard subject matter. It's got racism and classism, and there is violence, especially violence towards women. There is assault and rape and just all kinds of absolutely horrific things that take place on this ship that is out in the space, I guess. So I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the commentary. I thought the writing was really interesting and good. And I can't wait to read more books by River Solomon. So check that one out if that sounds like something you would be interested in. The next book that I listened to was Educated by Tara Westover. And I know this sounds odd with the themes of the other books that I have in this wrap up, but I'd had Educated on hold from my library in audiobook form for months and months and months. And it just happened to come in. So there we go. That is always the way it happens, isn't it? You've got tons of other audiobooks and you've been waiting on one forever, and that one finally comes in. So this book I gave 5 stars to. It is a nonfiction memoir type book, and it is about a woman, Tara specifically, who was raised by these Christian fundamentalists that survivalists, I don't know what you would call them. They're the people who you think of living up in the mountains with the fortresses, and they're going to fight the government and whatever that you call those people. That is who she was raised by. It is an absolutely horrific story of her childhood, and this follows her up into her adult life even, but her stories about her childhood and what she went through and her siblings went through, and the connection and the trauma that all of this was the impact that all of this trauma had on their fundamental development, not only through religion, but through their psychosis and their emotional and mental development. Just is heartbreaking and terrifying and all those other words. There are this is not an easy book to listen to or read or whatever. I do think it's an important book to listen to or read or whatever, consume. There's a lot to be brought from this book as far as mental health, religion, just the extreme one side or the other thoughts and processes and all that, but really mental health and education or lack of and religion play a huge role in this story and in the way this book is told and the way Tara was raised. So I definitely recommend you listening to or reading or consuming this book. I highly recommend it. The next book that I listened to was Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Murr, I believe is how you say that. I gave this 4 stars. Guys, I don't even know how to describe this book. It is a fantasy. I think it's got some paranormal aspects, and I think it could be considered to have paranormal aspects to it because they are mages and necromancers. Um, I just enjoyed the book. I have no idea what happened in this book. I had no idea what was going on in it the entire time I was listening to it, but it was fun. I really loved Gideon. I just loved Gideon. Probably one of my favorite characters. Again, no idea what the hell was going on through this book or what it's about. I couldn't tell you. I mean, I know what it was about, but I don't know how to explain it. I guess I don't know. Whatever. It's a good book if you enjoy fantasy and that kind of stuff. Sci-fi, maybe it's sci-fi. I don't know how you would classify it, but it's fun. Go check it out. So between Educated and Gideon the Ninth, I actually listened to Peter Pan again. There was a prompt that had something to do with, I think, a reread or a childhood favorite. I don't know. Something. For some reason, I thought Peter Pan fit well. This is like my 3rd or 4th read of this. It's my favorite childhood classic. I absolutely love this book. I love this story. I love Peter Pan. Tinkerbell just cracks me up. I mean, it's 5 stars for me. Every time I listen to it or read it, it gives me something else. I find something else in this story that I just love, that I didn't pick up before, like the orgies with the fairies. Why did I not pick that up the first 5 times I read this book? I don't know. So, yeah, it is what it is. We all know the story of Peter Pan. The next book that I listened to is Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the 3rd and final book in the Illuminae Files series. I'm not going to talk much about it as far as themes because it's the 3rd and final book. I don't want to give anything away, but we follow a group of people who are trying to take down this corporation that killed a bunch of people and bombed a bunch of people. Bombed the planet they were living on. So, I gave this one 4 stars. And I think that the reason I did not enjoy it as much as I did the first 2 volumes is because I listened to the audiobook of this. And I know people say the audiobook of these are fantastic. And don't get me wrong, the audiobook was fantastic. It is a full production. But this book is multimedia. I mean, there are text messages and, this is Aiden, and there are dossiers, and there's just so much visually going on in the book itself that I think that because I wasn't reading the book while listening to the audio, that I lost some of the coolness of this book and some of the story. So for me, personally, I think that the audiobook took away from the book for me. So that was kind of why I think I didn't enjoy it as much. The next book I listened to was The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury. This book I listened to every Halloween for the last 3 years. I will continue to listen to it every Halloween going forward. I love this book. It is a middle grade book, and it talks about Halloween and the traditions of Halloween throughout the years and the different cultures and countries and the way it is celebrated by different people and why we dress up as mummies and skeletons and ghosts and how all of that interacts, and there's other ones too, but witches and things. So it also brings in sacrifice and love, and what we're willing to give up for a friend. So highly recommend it. Love this book so much. And the final book that I'm going to talk about is Anansi's Boys by Neil Gaiman. I gave this one 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook. It's a Neil Gaiman book. This is actually my second listen to this book. I originally listened to it in, I want to say 2016. It was the very first Neil Gaiman book I'd ever encountered. And I really enjoyed it back then. My opinion of it doesn't change. But I didn't remember anything about it from when I listened to it before. Anansi's Boys follows the two brothers of the spider god. Anansi is the spider god, and it follows his two boys and their life. One of the sons inherited the god powers, the other son did not, and they're, I guess, supposed to be twins. So it follows their dynamics and some shenanigans that they get up to. That's all I'm gonna say. Because how do you explain a Neil Gaiman book, really? It is based on Norse mythology, Anansi, and there are some other aspects of it that come into play. We do meet some different gods and stuff in there as well. So, enjoyed it. It's 5 stars. I don't think I've ever rated a Neil Gaiman book under 5 stars. So, one final book I want to talk about, and then I won't be talking about much, is Cruel Crown by Victoria Aveyard. This is a short story collection. It has 2 short stories in the Red Queen series. It has been on my TBR off and on all year long because of my TBR revisits from 2017. I went to read this in October. Went to put it into my Goodreads as currently reading, only to discover that I read it in 2016. So it's officially off my TBR. I don't really remember anything about it. Even when I started listening to the stories, I didn't remember, vaguely remembered some of it. You know, it sounded a little familiar, but I'm not interested in it enough to reread it. So we're done with this book. It's going in the red pile. So that is it for my October wrap up. Let me know what you thought of the books that I read below. Have you read them? Are you going to read any of them? Also, if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you didn't enjoy it, hit that thumbs down button. That's what it's there for. But while you are over there, hit the big red subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. That way you can see more videos of mine so that you can either thumbs up or thumbs down. And be sure to leave me a comment of some kind. If you don't have anything related to the books I've read or talked about in this wrap up, then just leave me a hello or an emoji down below. That allows me to still interact with you in the comments, and it lets me know that you've watched my videos. So until next time, when we have another wrap up, I will talk to you later. Bye.